phase of moon.
Welcome back to Third Phase of Moon. My name's Blake Cousins, and today we have a special guest. He started the Disclosure Project in the 1990s and spoke there in Washington in regards to the citizen hearing and the UFO phenomenon. World famous Dr. Greer, who just released the blockbuster Sirius, and he's here live right here at Third Phase of Moon, and we're going to get to him. Thanks for joining us right here at Third Phase of Moon, Dr. Stephen Greer.
Thanks, Blake. Appreciate it.
All right, well, let's get to it right now, Dr. Stephen Greer. I want to ask you first, what led you to start the Disclosure Project?
Well, it was an accident of history, actually. I had started a group to make diplomatic contact with extraterrestrial civilizations in 1990, the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And in 1992, we had an event happen in Florida, which is actually mentioned in the film Sirius that just came out, where 4 extraterrestrial vehicles popped into the sky and was signaling to us, and there were some military people there who saw that. It went up the chain of command, and I ended up meeting with the former head of Army Intelligence, and that was then led to people after Clinton got elected who were friends of the president and his first CIA director, and I was asked to start briefing those folks. And what I learned was that most of those people didn't know anything. They'd made inquiries and were being basically blown off. And so after I met and briefed the CIA director, R. James Woolsey, I discovered that there was actually a very deep national security state that was super black, I mean, beyond the normal black world of classified projects, and that those projects were being run illegally outside the constitutional chain of command. So back in those days, it was called Project Starlight, and you can actually get from the Clinton archives of the Presidential Library what we were doing to brief folks back then. And I'm working full-time as an emergency and trauma doctor, taking care of the usual shootings and stabbings and car wrecks and stuff, and I'm going up to D.C. on sort of a shuttle diplomacy, and up to New York to meet with the UN Secretary General and his family and folks like that, trying to put together a coalition to end the secrecy. And it turns out that none of those people wanted to take that on. So by the late 90s, we concluded that no member of Congress, because I briefed many members of the Senate Intelligence Committee and Armed Services Committee and government oversight committees, privately, of course, they did not want to take this issue on. So I said, oh, wait, we're going to have to do it. So we started the whole process of the Disclosure Project in the late 90s and began to interview. Initially, it was maybe about 40 of these military and top secret guys. Now we have about 500 of them that I personally have met with. We have about 110 of them on a videotape. And we're beginning to load those on to our YouTube channel at the SeriousDisclosure.com. We've started a YouTube channel to put those up. But it's a huge amount of material, and most people have no idea they even exist, even to this day. So that happened, and then in 2001, the National Press Club event that we did, which was at the time the most watched event in the history of the internet, not just the National Press Club. Eventually around 800 million people around the world saw it. And that led to now about 14 countries that have opened up their secret UFO files and what have you. Of course, the United States is still very much in the dark on this, mainly because the United States is the crown jewel of the technology and the science behind how UFOs move, where they're getting their energy from, and that's really what the secrecy about. It has almost nothing to do with ETs. It has to do with the fact that we don't need oil. And everyone on the inside that I've met with know this. And so this is almost like an open secret in the higher national security circles. But when you talk to these guys, they say, oh, well, we can't disclose that information because it's too disruptive. And I said, well, what's more disruptive, bringing this information out or waiting for the Earth to turn upside down with both polar ice caps melt? I mean, give me a break. This is stupid. So we've kept pushing forward with the Disclosure Project, and of course this film, Sirius, is to sort of galvanize people around the idea that we need to come together and fund a new energy laboratory independent of corporations and the government. And that's actually the main reason why we did the film. And anyone who wants to see it can see it at SeriousDisclosure.com, or they can see it, at the theater there in LA, where it's going to run for a week, at the Music Hall 3, and in New York at the Quad Cinema. But the key thing is that if we don't do this, it isn't going to happen. I keep, yesterday I was on an interview and someone said, hey, when is the government going to do disclosure? I said, between now and never. We're going to do it. We're going to find the people who are the whistleblowers. We're going to put it out there. We're going to make peaceful contact with these civilizations, and we're going to bring out these technologies. It isn't going to happen at Lockheed Martin or from the White House or the Congress. I'm actually very dubious. Now, I still meet with members of Congress and other people in official capacities all over the world. In fact, I'm doing a very big event this summer in a country I can't discuss with a lot of world leaders, about 120 world leaders. And they want to know, but there's a difference between knowing and doing. And everyone conflates the two. They think that just because, say, the president might inquire about something like this and get information, and even if it's what they call actionable intelligence, it doesn't mean that he's going to actually take it on. Because first of all, he's going to be called a kook and a crazy. Secondly, and ridiculed. Secondly, he's going to be threatened. And thirdly, he may not survive the effort to bring it out, even if he could. But more importantly, there's this misconception that just because you're the head of the intelligence unit for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, a man that I briefed, the head of Intelligence Joint Staff, J2 it's called, that you have an all-access pass. And the reality is our government and military and intelligence sector is so screwed up. It's exactly what Eisenhower warned us about when he said, beware the military-industrial complex. It's become such a Byzantine octopus with a zillion tentacles, and people who are in those positions are basically being zoomed all the time. I mean, I've met with so many senior officials who go, I suspect this is going on, and I've made directed inquiries, but they won't tell me anything. I said, well, you're not alone. So I think that disclosure is about us doing the right thing.
Absolutely fascinating. Now let's get to the next question, Dr. Greer, in regards to the creature that was showcased in the blockbuster documentary Sirius. How did you come across this amazing creature?
Well, about 4 years ago, I was given a lecture, and there was a man who was waiting after I was doing a book signing to speak to me, and he waited very patiently and came up. One of my assistants said, "This man really has something you need to see." So he had on his smartphone a video of this little Atacama humanoid, we call it. And because I'm a medical doctor and also the head of the disclosure movement worldwide, he basically said, why don't you come and investigate this? We need someone to really, with some scientific credentials, look into this. So about 3.5 years ago, I went over to Barcelona, Spain, examined this creature, held it, looked at some of the preliminary x-rays, and I concluded it was a real organism, and we didn't know what it was. So finally, in 2012, in September, we got access to take genetic samples, do an MRI, a CAT scan, and very detailed x-rays that a scientist at Stanford needed, Dr. Ralph Lockman, who's the world's expert on skeletal abnormalities, let's say, or dysplasias. And he concluded that this is a 6 to 8 year old child. Now, it's 6 inches long. And the genetics, people say, oh, well, the geneticist says it's 99% human. I said, well, there's 9% of the genes that are unmatched. And it's going to take probably 1 year to 5 years to figure out what's in that 9%. And just so the public who's listening understands this, you and I are about 99.5% identical to a Neanderthal. Chimpanzees were 96, 97%. If half of this unmatched genetic material is actually an operative genetic code, that means that this creature is more different from you and me than you and I are from chimpanzees. And the answer right now is we don't know. We do know, however, there are more of these apparently out there. And the geneticist at Stanford, Dr. Nolan, has said that if there's more than one, it's case closed, that it precludes a one-off genetic mutation. And then you start getting reports from that area of Chile in the Atacama Desert, the driest place on Earth, where people have seen these small creatures when they're adults. They're about 1 foot or so tall, associated with luminous objects that come down and go into the Earth and what have you. And so we're beginning to discover that there's a whole backstory to this that since I was at the National Press Club a couple weeks ago, is coming to light from researchers in South America. So Of course, the media wants to say because it has human genetic material in it, it's known what it is. It's a deformed human. That's not true. The truth is nobody knows what it is, but every day it's looking more and more like it's something very unusual, because there may have been one of these in Russia that we have film of and video of. It looks like there's another one in Santiago that's smaller, even a younger child, and there may also be one that's similar to this in Puerto Rico. So if that's true, then you have to ask the question, is this a different species? And is the shared genome that we have with it, which came first? And this gets to be very controversial, and I'll ask Sarah Palin not to listen to this right now. But for example, there's the B2A allele that's in this creature that is in the female mitochondria of the people of that part of Chile. And the question is, in the Native American tradition, in South America and America, it is said that our ancestors came from the stars. So the question is, did contact happen 20, 30, 40, 50,000 years ago that led to that genetic material to be in humans? Or is it the other way around? We don't know. And so you can't make any assumptions about it at this point, except to say it's very strange, because being a doctor, I don't know how you keep a 6-inch, 6-year-old alive. Man, it is at least 6 to 8 years of age by studying the epiphyseal plates, which is the growth plates in not just the knee, but the entire body. The other thing is that it's symmetrical. It's not like it's a deformed, like a club foot or a trisomy or some other known genetic. And the other strange thing is that when the geneticist looked at the part of the genetic readout, the initial genetic readout, which is all that's been done, the areas that control for dwarfism or genetic skeletal dysplasias or all that stuff, it's all normal. Well, you wouldn't expect to see that if this is a 6-year-old that's only 6 inches big and tall. And with no question at all, it's not a hoax, and it's a real organism, and it's a humanoid, a human-like creature. But beyond that, it's still an open book.
Now, to the next question. We just released right here at Third Phase of Moon. The video went viral, and it's in regards to the free energy device developed by Dr. Searle. And, you know, he claims that it could get to 0 point energy. It was featured in your movie series. Can you tell us a little bit more about this, you know, device, or so-called the machine?
Well, first of all, I don't think they're as common as people think. A lot of people have made different components of it, and then they're shut down. There are a lot of frauds out there that we've investigated. There are a lot of things that are legitimate that have been confiscated. If it's in the domain of being in existence, it's more likely something that isn't completed yet or finished, or it's something that the inventor, being afflicted with what I call crazy inventor syndrome, won't let anyone transparently see, test, and reproduce. Now, the sine qua non of science is independent testing, independent reproduction of the effect. And if you can't do that, this is the problem they're running in with the Rossi cold fusion thing in Italy, is that the people testing say, well, there's something unusual going on here in terms of excess energy generation, but nobody knows how it's working because he's so paranoid to let anyone see it. So what I think we need to do is to break that cycle and do an open source research and development program where we take all the information I've collected over the last 20 years, and it's substantial. This is really actionable intelligence. I have computer disks filled with designs and information. But the average person who tries to do this off in their garage is going to get a visit from someone. I don't care if they're in the Amazon of Brazil. And that thing's going to get confiscated, and if the person isn't killed in the process. So I think the only way to do this is to do it very transparently, openly, with millions of people knowing about it, and in a way that's quite open, where you would literally be live streaming like we are now, maybe on Ustream or something, the activity of the lab. I mean, you know, not the confidential private areas like restrooms, but the research. And so the instant you have a breakthrough, it's known by everyone, and it's announced by everyone. It's not something you keep secret. And then you put that information out and ask universities that we're working with and other laboratories, please reproduce this effect. And you do it very, very openly like that. Now, to do that, you're not going to do that for a few $1,000s. You're going to have probably between $8 and $10 million to open a lab and staff it with research scientists and the right equipment. But that's a very small amount. I mean, the city of San Francisco, for example, spent $5 million just to do a feasibility study if they could capture the energy going for the tides going in and out of the Golden Gate. $5 million for a study. Okay, I think for a little more than that, we could actually build up the initial prototypes of this stuff, whether it be a water fuel system like Stan Meyer or a zero-point free energy system. My intention would not to go straight into the anti-gravs. All right, now that's cool stuff. When you create a counter-rotating vortex at very high voltages and things begin to lift, I've seen it in labs that I've been in. The problem is you're stepping on the toes of the Air Force and a missile delivery system then. And so in my conversations with some folks is that let's walk before we levitate. And by that I mean let's get free energy out to get us off oil and gas and coal before we start doing things that can launch and get us from here to Paris in 2 or 3 seconds. Can that be done? Yes. But the world is you have to phase some of this in. And I think the energy component of it, however, the things like Tesla and Stubblefield had in 1908 or whenever it was, back in the early part of the 1900s, we have a picture up on our website of Nikola Tesla standing there with Stubblefield, and they had an Earth energy battery system that was free energy running this man's farm. And that really did exist. And we had a man under contract who does a lot of work for the government who knew how that really operated and was building that up for us when he got visited by a former CIA director and was threatened. And so I've concluded that you cannot do this with one guy here and one guy there. You've got to do this in a way that's well organized, has good security, good tactical support, logistics. That's what we're trying to do.
Many people talk about the alien agenda. What do you think the agenda of the ETs are, aside from joining the Federation and intergalactic neighborhood?
Yeah, well, I think those who know do not say, and those who say do not know. I'm quoting Lao Tzu from the Tao Te Ching. The truth about this is that I don't see it as an agenda as so much, which is a great buzzword, as their involvement with the Earth goes back to antiquity, way beyond recorded history. And these civilizations are basically waiting for us to evolve to a point that we become, as Michikaku said, a type 1 civilization, which would be at least we're functioning peacefully on this planet and not destroying it. We're not there yet. So in the meanwhile, what we're doing with our CE5 initiative is where we train people to use these advanced concepts in remote viewing and consciousness to go out and make contact. That is something that I think we're doing as sort of a morphogenic field propagation, where we're trying to create a 100th monkey effect or going into the future. But the truth is, these extraterrestrial civilizations are really expecting us to fix our own problems unless we become such a problem that we become an existential threat to either other planets or this one. Now, at that point, there could be some kind of massive event. And I've said this. I wrote this in 1991 in a white paper that went all the way through the agency and the aerospace industry. But until we reach that point, I think that they're observing, they're wanting to interact with us in a way that's peaceful and in a very prescribed manner until we fix our own house. And so I tell people it's much less about the ET issue than it is the human issue. And we're still having wars raging, we're still lying to each other about their presence, we're still keeping technology secret that have been around for 100 years. We have half the world impoverished to the point that they don't even have plumbing, indoor plumbing. Still, in 2013, about 48% of the world's population does not have indoor plumbing. Think about that. Now, why? This is an artificial macroeconomic, I call it enslavement, that has happened because we've let these petrofascists run amok for 100 years. Now, the ETs aren't going to land here and fix it any more than we landed in Afghanistan and imposed Jeffersonian democracy. It doesn't happen that way. So their agenda, I think, is to observe us, be sure we don't become an existential threat to ourselves and others, which unfortunately we're approaching that, but also to be prepared to welcome us when we become more civilized. But most of that work is in our hands, not in the hands of the ETs. And I honestly feel that what people need to stop doing is expecting Big Brother in Washington or the big corporations or the ETs to fix all of our problems. We need to say, what can we do to fix these problems right now? And that's something that most people don't want to do because they want to consume shock and drivel in reality TV programs rather than doing the hard work of transforming the situation, which is really what we're recommending and trying to encourage people to do.
Mr. Dr. Greer, with over 80,000 subscribers on our channel and 60 million views worldwide on Third Phase of Moon, we want to get the word out. What would you suggest to the viewers listening and watching right now, what they could do to help get disclosure or get the word out in regards to your movie, Sirius?
I would say that if people want to see real change happen, they need to make it happen. And you can go to SiriusDisclosure.com. There's a donate button. If every one of your listeners and viewers donated $1 to $5, the price of a latte, we would have the funds to open this facility this year and bring out these technologies in the secrecy and change things. It isn't going to happen by people just being entertained with crazy ideas. We actually need to put one step in front of the other and make this happen. I gave up the chairmanship of emergency medicine to do this, and I would ask that people do something to network this to the people they know and love. And if they care about the planet, they care about peaceful contact in space and the human future, to do something to join with us to help. And that's actually would be my appeal to everyone who would listen to this.
Wow, Mr. Greer, we really appreciate you joining us right here at Third Phase of Moon, and we look forward to having you back for future episodes and more updates. Thanks again.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right, Dr. Greer. And for everybody out there, we just did an amazing interview with Dr. Stephen Greer earlier, and we'll be posting the entire exclusive radio show right here at Third Phase of Moon. And if anybody out there has captured anything amazing in regards to UFOs, you could contact us at Third Phase of Moon via Skype or Facebook. My name's Blake Cousins, and we'll see you again next time.
Phase of Moon.
The problem is not proving that UFOs exist. It's when you begin to expose the energy and propulsion systems behind how they're getting here.
What scientists need to do is they need to look at the hardcore evidence, decide that, oh my gosh, ETs are real, and then get over that. Then you can start extrapolating.
These sciences have been around for decades. They have been ruthlessly kept secret because of the power of a centralized petrodollar oil, gas, coal system. And right now these misanthropic sociopaths are running the planet into the ground.
Governments have not gone far enough, so we've decided that as people to form our own movement.
All right, game on, roll one.
What we are attempting to achieve is a device which defeats the perpendicular force of gravity.
We have so many modes of converting quantum vacuum energy or zero-point energy.
This possible EVE was found in the Atacama Desert.
We have the best scientists that are going to be doing the DNA testing.
We have 1,150 teams of CE5 ambassadors.
I can attest to the fact that real phenomenon happens here.
And this is probably the most important thing going on this planet today, and yet nobody talks about it.
Puede saber los años y todo.
If we come together, we can make this happen in a matter of months, not decades. For this is the destiny of humanity.